Well, it is good to be back with the smoothest boys that I know. Any given Sunday is proud to be sponsored by one of Australia's fastest growing grooming men's brand, Nutcare. Proudly Australian, Nutcare is taking down under grooming to the modern day man. Recently voted number one by Men's Health magazine with Bare Nuts pubic hair removal cream. Nutcare is revolutionising male grooming. As proud sponsors of Any Given Sunday, Nutcare is offering our listeners 10% off their first orders. Simply use the promo code Any Given Sunday at the checkout and the discount will be applied. Nutcare, essential grooming for men.
We genuinely are the smoothest boys around, though.
Yeah, that part, 100%.
100% true. I love it.
Better.
I love
10% off at the checkout, 100% off your balls. Perfect.
it.
Sorry, Loz.
Grouse.
Brown 45! Brown 45! Hot, 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 hot!
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in 3 households, 1 podcast, and I reckon a couple of states now that we've got a couple of special guests from interstate, out of state, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Joining us as always, as you've heard, the smoothest as they come, as smooth as they come, work experience kid turned pro at Danny Webb AGSau, mate. You've made your way to the top after someone's gone on Daniel leave. How are you, mate?
Oh, so happy to be back at the top, but also happy to have our Cardi party back as well. It's nice to have the full squad.
Yes, he is the bronzed bison, the big man himself. You're looking extremely tanned at Tim Cardi AGSau. How are you, mate?
Very, very good, mate. Just clinging on for dear life. It's like, that barley tan. It's like when you get home, it feels like it almost washes off in the shower. And there's not a lot of sun to be seen as we get closer to winter, boys.
It's only about 11 degrees where I am, so there's definitely no sun. But
not quite winter yet, as we all know and always knew.
No, and we are not lucky enough to be up in Sydney, where apparently it's 21, 22 degrees, perfect golf weather. But we are joined by our very own ESPN insider, Laurie Horesh. How are you, big dog?
I'm doing well. I'm basking in the glow of the compliments you guys have been sharing with each other. I mean, it may be winter. It's frosty down in Melbourne. That lazy wind that just ruins your night, running right through you when you're walking the mean streets of Melbourne. It certainly hasn't taken the warmth and the loving vibes away from you three. So happy to be joining for the Arvo.
Well, we have to bring the vibes because the weather is so shit.
Why we come on to just feel good about ourselves.
That is purely the main reason.
Got a nice warm cup of ginger lemon tea to keep my vibe strong.
Are you wearing moccos as well still? Or?
Absolutely. Do you want to see him?
Yeah. I got
Get him
mine.
out.
Oh, actually, I don't have mine. I lie.
Well, just knocked over my whole table.
We need to have little incentives.
Yeah,
constantly,
delicious.
always on the foot.
Oh, they look well worn in too.
Yeah.
It's not purely for the YouTubers that are watching.
Ginger lemon tea and moccasins. This is what we call peak Melbourne in the city office.
Yeah.
Although, that does remind me, we have upgraded some of our technology, I guess. You can now watch us live on, well, not live, or you can watch us on Spotify, which is a bit of an upgrade. I had that pleasure the other day when I was just testing it all out. I don't watch myself all the time, I swear. But yeah, it's quite a pleasure to be able to log into Spotify if you've got it, and you can actually watch us there.
So still available on YouTube and all the other places, but just additionally on Spotify now.
Yeah, we've just upgraded. So we're getting more serious. We do have a lot of things. The pipeline that we speak of is quite large at the moment. I know we've been a little bit quiet on the front. We had the good interview. Danny, you took control with Coach Logan Tooley-Tillman. How was he, mate?
You absolutely nailed his name then, but you messed it up the
muffed
first
it
time.
on the time. Yeah, I did.
Absolutely, but that's just like a classic T-Mac. He was incredibly inspiring, great to speak to. Any inspiring O-line or anyone who actually wants to get into the sport should definitely go back and watch that one. It was great chat, and I felt pumped up. I was like, maybe I can do this.
Yeah. Some of the sayings that he was watching it back, some of the sayings he was coming out with was, like you said, make you want to run through a brick wall.
Yeah, absolutely. He was definitely knew how to get the fire going. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We've got Loz here for a certain amount of time, so we're going to get straight into it. We're going to start with Dr. Danny's injury report, which is brought to us by C2C Rare Threads. You can check out their merch, but you can also, this is one of theirs, the Packers gear that I'm wearing. It's cherry ripe. But you can also now, you can buy our merch on their website and through their Instagram, and you still get 10% off with the code AnyGivenSunday. Yeah. What do we got, boys?
Is it me, D-Web?
You are, yes,
Me.
you're
All
right.
right, so last time
Great start. We're a bit rusty.
I've been on leave. So last time we had you on, Loz, we were talking lots about the Aaron Rodgers trade. When's it going to happen? Yada yada. I think hours after we wrapped the episode, and the trade went through, and everything got finalised there. But the latest news out of the Rodgers and Jets camp is just a slight little calf strain. What have you heard coming out of Jets camp about the old man injury, the old calf strain?
It is an old man injury
for Rodgers there.
Yeah, I mean, hours after we saw, video pushed out on social of Rodgers with the little sneak into the corner, holding on to the few pump fakes, and as they get into their off-season workouts there, a couple of pump fakes and scurries in for a, training park touchdown that we see the little calf, they're really playing it down. What you hear, like all the noise out of Jets camp anytime, I've been asked about it on the mic from players and coaches that you're just hearing, they're playing down. It's minor, really trying to pour cold water on any kind of heat and smoke out of there. Obviously, it's the New York media market. It's a little different as glorified and decorated as Aaron Rodgers' career has been up in Wisconsin, in Green Bay. That New York media market is slightly different. So there's obviously going to be plenty of chatter about it, but that's the word that you're getting out of Jets camp. And then they also, there was an initial bit of concern for their other signing, big off-season signing from Green Bay as well, Alan Lazard. But Lazard assured everybody that, I got back into the practice session that was just a little bit of a hit below the belt. That's just something that a lot of people can sympathise with, having gone through, a shot below the belly button over whether your sporting career or just,
below the belt, like was it his knees, his quads?
Yeah, was it another calf? What was it, mate? What have you heard?
A calf? I'm not sure.
He used the word gonads.
Oh,
Australian. Oh, that was Australian parlance, but apparently it's a global term there. It does take me back hearing that word gonads. And I'm trying not to say it too many times, but it does take me back to think like year 10 athletic carnival, where I was determined to try and make this school team, and I failed in qualifying for the 100 and 200, so 400, and a bunch of my mates were trying to nickname me for the day Nads, just so that when I was running around the bend that they could yell go, and then
so I was wondering where this running story could come into gonads, but
so as nice. I made the move around the final bend there into the lead and was a little too pumped up that I might be earning an extra day off school, and selection into. Look, I won't say it was the most illustrious athletics team, Old International Grammar back in the mid 2000s, but as I saw more at the end of the finish line, not so much, the glory of athletic achievement, but that shining day off school coming up. That's what I heard from my mates hanging around the high jump mats at the final bend there.
It's peak year 10 humour.
Nads didn't stick, mate.
Look, that humour comes. I think that's brought to you by Lynx Africa. That's what you think about when you think that. How'd you
go? Did you take it out?
Yeah, I mean, the guys that won the 100 and 200 had not run the 400 because they had already booked their tickets to the week off. So, it wasn't the strongest field, perhaps an AFC South level field that I was up against there. But enough to get a fresh Wednesday off in autumn. What could you ask for that any more than that as a burgeoning, not so great high school sprinter?
We love
so top two, not two, mate. Is that what we're hearing?
Oh no, top one.
That's
out,
right. That's what.
Top two, not two. Took it out, daylight second. But let's just say I wasn't running against the cream of the crop in that heat.
You can only beat who you play.
So we're feeling pretty good about Rodgers and Lazard. Like I was reading a couple of articles and it said he hung out. It was at the second OTA. Was it like the open press day or whatever? And he stayed out there. He's walking around. Didn't have a sock on the calf running. So thinking pretty minor.
Yeah, and look, it's a bit different. Like across the leagues, different teams have different exposure to the media that they allow for training sessions, and I think it's actually more constrained in recent seasons. I know from the Dallas Cowboys standpoint, there was a point where they were doing OTAs live, training camp live, and like streaming, commentary with practice from the sideline one-on-one
America's
reps,
team. They got to
team
get the
drills.
product out there.
Well, no, yeah, that's what they were doing, and I think there was actually a bit of a memo to peg that back a little bit, because a few teams were messaging, a few like scouts from other teams were messaging media, being like, "Are you guys really putting this up there? Because we're watching and loving every minute of this. Seeing your formations and some of the things you're working on." I think it's pared back a bit, but yeah, as you mentioned, from what they've seen, it wasn't panic stations. Obviously, there's going to be a whole bunch of attention on this. This is a quarterback in his late 30s, who so much we think for this season, perhaps for next season, feels a bit wild and reckless to talk beyond 2 years in New York, but someone that carries legitimate Super Bowl hopes for the Jets, the franchise, and a fan base that is very, very thirsty for it.
Super Bowl
they've definitely. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. They've definitely gone all in on this. So obviously, a lot of Jets fans were seeing it and were like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine." And it's always good and well to say that it is fine. But if it's going to be a niggling injury that carries on, I guess time's up.
Because he doesn't normally traditionally train this early. Like he doesn't join in.
Hasn't for years.
Stuff, does he? Yeah.
And if there's going to be people out there that be like, "Oh, he doesn't normally practice at this point," or "How well conditioned was he," or anything like that. But we've seen these injuries happen to quarterbacks of any level of age and fitness. You go back to recent training camps, and you'll find a whole host of superstars that needed weeks off and needed rest days, veteran days. It's still May. That's what we need to remember. It is still May. There's no panic stations there, but I think it's more than anything, the most telling thing is it's a little sampling of the type of drumbeat and noise that we can expect out of that camp and that media scene this year with Rodgers in town.
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't know. The news that I heard is it's pretty much off the bone. The Achilles is just hanging on. So we'll see what happens.
Impartial as always, Macca.
Just on that, like the Jets have gone full all in. I can't even remember what it's called now off the top of my head, but they've like created this YouTube series of 23 videos. If you did catch the first one of that?
Nah.
I haven't, but you're right though. It is all in. It's like there is, and there's no point not to, right? This isn't a long-term play. This isn't the New Orleans Saints taking on Drew Brees at the midpoint of his career. Having been at the Chargers and with an injury cloud, and we're still going to build with this guy for the next decade. This is someone that it might be a 12-month window, not even 12 months technically, but it might be a one-season window. Ideally, it's 2 or more for Jets fans, but there's no point with any half measures here, whether it's adding talent on offense, defense, or hyping up as much as you can and pumping out, documentary tier series, high production quality stuff. It is like there is no. It sounds weird for a team that has had such little amount of success in decades and decades and decades, but it's Super Bowl or bust for the Jets. That's what this move is.
Absolutely. So, taking it away from the Jets for a little bit, as much as I'm sure T-Mac wants to continue to talk about them and Rodgers all day, every day.
Let's move on.
Do you have any news on Brock Purdy after some rumors floating around for calls for Trey Lance?
I mean, what you're hearing from the brass in San Francisco is yes, still week 1 target. They still think he's got a chance for that, and that's within the realm of possibility. Again, you're several months out from that, but that he might start throwing as soon as next week. And look, that'll be an important step. This is anytime we're talking about arm injuries for quarterbacks. There's a lot of eyes on that. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the likes of Matthew Stafford, who's obviously at a very different point of his career than Brock Purdy. But we start talking about you go back to Dak Prescott and the shoulder stuff in recent seasons that came up around this time of year exactly almost, or as we started training camp. Anytime we're talking about that part of the body of the quarterback, there's going to be a lot of conjecture. There's going to be a lot of concern. But it's that window of opportunity that exists, not just for Trey Lance and everything he's gone through in his short time in San Francisco, but Sam Darnold is there, and I've been, I'm a fallen Sam Darnold fan from where the talent I thought he brought into the league in the early flashes and where that went. But you'd be, as much as Brock Purdy was such an amazing story in the back half of that season and into the playoffs, and we felt like we were robbed a bit of that, although I'm sure Eagles fans in here don't think we were robbed of anything. In terms of seeing Brock Purdy on that final stage in the conference championship game, it is a small sample size. And you'd be a fool, much like, I think, if I'm talking to fantasy fans out there, much like you'd be a fool to take, in so many seasons, take the top-ranked Denver Broncos running back for season upon season upon season. You see people investing early round picks, and it was someone else from the back of the pack. you can look at that situation, the quarterback situation in San Francisco, and say similar things. You could go broke betting on the front runner for the starting position to be that person all the way and to maintain that pole position all the way through the season. And especially when, look, heartbroken or not, whether you ever thought Sam Darnold was going to be good or you thought he was a bust and threw too many picks in college and was always going to end up this way, there's physical talent that comes with that. There's immense physical talent that comes with Trey Lance, and Purdy's injury, despite the amazing story that he was in 2022 or 2023 now, at a franchise that has had plenty of changing, moving parts of the quarterback spot over the years under this regime, there's a window open for this to get really wild in terms of a quarterback race, quarterback competition, dominating headlines for the next couple of months.
You mentioned Matt Stafford there, just to throw a bit of a curveball at you. Is Stetson Bennett, after being taken by the Rams, is he a genuine long-term? Because he's almost as old as Matt Stafford.
Yeah, look, he's going in as a pretty old rookie quarterback. Look, Stetson Bennett you're going to hear words like gamer, clutch, big-time performer. He's been on the big stage. He's decorated at college, but there's a reason he slipped. There's, his personality rubs some people the wrong ways in rooms. We're not sitting in those rooms, so it's hard to look from here. Inside what you go off, what buzz and rumors that you hear, but that perhaps his personality isn't for everyone. But he has overcome a whole bunch in terms of his expectation and rating and what he had to do to get on that paddock and be in those positions to lift trophies and be there when the cigars were lit. With championships secured at the college level. There's mobility to his game, but from what he was asked to do at Georgia to how that translates to the pro game, for the physical skill set that he does bring. Yes, the age, and you question where he's at in terms of how much better he could get. He's the type of quarterback that if he gets a chance, would it surprise anybody that he, steps up as a gamer and delivers? No, but there's a difference between being a decorated college quarterback who also played on some truly loaded Georgia teams, like some. Don't need to talk. I said we've got the Eagles fans sitting in here. They just drafted the defense,
pretty much
the last couple of years.
Georgia Eagles now.
Yeah, that's it, right? And throwing Pittsburgh as well. I think the Steelers have nagged a few as well. So really, it's Pennsylvania has just gone down to Georgia and just started pillaging away there with some of the talent. But there is that difference. It's great to see college storylines and championship pedigree, and that's something that is valued. But there's a reason he was seen at the draft capital, worth the draft capital he was. If Stafford is healthy, it's still Stafford's team. There is obviously questions around that super arm that Stafford's boasted in the league for so long. But for Stetson Bennett, I don't think he's the full investment. I think it's a swing that the Rams took late in the draft for a franchise that is so resource strapped in so many different ways because of the way they've run their roster in recent years. And they talk about going all in. It got them a Super Bowl championship. But this is a team that doesn't have a lot of avenues, or at least this season didn't have a lot of avenues for young, cheap quarterback talent at the top of the draft. So this is a swing at the end. He absolutely has form and certain traits that say he could outkick that coverage or could outperform that draft day pedigree. But if I'm a Rams fan, I'm not sitting here today, putting all my hopes in the Stetson Bennett one at college. He's going to lead us to the glory land in the pro level.
You're spitting some truth there, but I only got the Philly Beagles out of that conversation. So thank you very much, Carts. I reckon from now on that will be the Philly Beagles.
I was going to say, I agree, and he feels like one of those, like he's going to be a perennial sort of backup quarterback. Like he might move a few times, and he's just always sitting in that number 2 spot. It just feels like, I don't know.
And it just depends the vibe. But like it's hard. You go off. Draft season is lying season, right? So you're not sure what, he interviewed so well in a room. Is that true? Is it not true?
Did he? You
hear questions about, how the personality fits that backup quarterback spot. Like generally you have to bring good vibes. We've seen the likes of Chad Henne stay around forever. One of the names that's escaping me right now, and it's infuriating. Chase Daniel stuck around in the league for so long and was like minister of good vibes. That's part of the role as a backup quarterback, and quarterback 3 if a team carries 3 of them. You're helping set the temperature in that room, maintaining, you're helping out quarterback. There's a young developmental quarterback you might be helping out there. You're providing perspective, insight, if you experience maybe some schematic knowledge to a young, talented quarterback that might not have seen certain looks. Backup quarterback, it's an interesting spot. Usually they do say, like local beat reporters love to say the most popular player in the locker room when a team is struggling is QB2. If the Rams do struggle, and when we're talking about LA football fans, we expect there'll be more out there for the Rams and the poor Chargers at times, as much as I do love that Chargers team, tragic as though they may be with their injury luck. That noise will get pretty loud if Stafford looks like the injury has taken something from him. If a roster that is piecemeal at best is struggling to perform, the quarterback 2 becomes pretty popular from the Rams faithful, I imagine.
Well, and I think if the 49ers showed us anything from last year, like having a quarterback 2 and a quarterback 3 was pivotal. Like, it was such a necessity for them, and having one that's successful as well, like coming in, which everyone, like, where they call him Mr. Irrelevant when Brock Purdy actually did come in. So it's like not necessarily a position, like just because they are a backup doesn't mean they're not going to still have a chance potentially, especially if QB1 goes down, to perform.
Absolutely. Like the Brock Purdy ascension last year challenged a lot of people's thinking, and you heard it sent a lot of teams back going, how do we miss on this? What are we looking for? What are some of the key things that he had that, was the amount of starts that he had, the amount of exposure, the snaps, the experience with different schemes that he had to go up against. Should we be valuing that more? Because we do often hear words like upside, and he's going to come into the league at 20. He's going to come into the league at 21. There's so much, he's so early in his development. And then I thought it was interesting because of Brock Purdy this offseason, we started to see some challenging with that, with someone like, say, Anthony Richardson. People saying how, it used to be, oh, he's so young. He's so early in his development. Look how much upside he has ahead. And now you're hearing some balancing of that, saying he is so young. He hasn't seen a lot. What happens if we do put him in early? Especially when you throw into the mix of that the value of the rookie quarterback contract. Having those guys play, having those guys on a rookie deal, taking up that QB1 spot, freeing up money for the rest of your roster is such an advantage. So you are seeing some kind of challenging ideas here in Purdy, and the experience in San Francisco is causing a lot of that. I should say the big asterisk there is that San Francisco scheme is very different, and not everybody can see such turnover in terms of names and yet maintain productivity and effectiveness on offense. So there's San Francisco scheme, and Kyle Shanahan, what he does there is a bit of an outlier in itself, but nonetheless, as that scheme or as that attempt of those concepts to take them from San Francisco and put them all around the league as, Cousins and guys who, were once in Kyle Shanahan's shadow, are part of his extensive coaching tree now, seems to spread throughout. People are going to have some belief they can execute that. But yeah, whenever we look at San Francisco, I do feel like that asterisk of an outlier does need to just be brought up for a minute there, because not everybody is so seamless.
Not everybody has George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey as well. Like I think that goes a long way to Brock Purdy. Yeah, that's it. Goes a long way. Yeah. But anyway, we'll move on to some other news, and our news today is brought to you by American Connection with a K on Instagram or their website as well. 10% at checkout with the code Any Given Sunday, and we're hopefully actually going to get on one of the boys to talk in a couple of weeks, Ben. I've already had a chat to him, but the internet was shit on his end, unfortunately. So not to throw him under the bus, he's fine with it. So yeah, we'll get him back on. It's a real good chat, so that'll be good to talk about. I want to bring up with you, Loz. We were going to get you on a couple of weeks ago when the schedule dropped, but we've now had a couple of weeks. We're going to bring the positive side. We've had a couple of weeks to soak it all in and really discover. Boys, I'm going to throw it to you too. As well, just games that we are looking forward to, and especially games that are going to stand out going into the season, Loz.
Well, I mean, you see, a Chiefs meeting with the Eagles, and it's hard to steer clear of that, especially when it happens to be on Monday Night Football, which is a bit of fun. There's a real, it's a good looking Monday Night Football matchup when you get just throw in. Those are obvious meetings. The Broncos and Sean Payton taking over Russell Wilson the week prior up against the Buffalo Bills. Justin Herbert versus Aaron Rodgers the week before that. In mid-October, you're looking at Dak Prescott up against Justin Herbert, Cowboys, Chargers, the Kellen Moore revenge game. The season finale, you got Baltimore and Lamar Jackson loading up on offense with a new scheme there, which should be far more bombs away through the air than Greg Roman's regime prior there on offense up against San Francisco. And you close out in late December, you've got so many people's second favorite team in the Detroit Lions hosting the Dallas Cowboys again. You said Cowboys quite a few times here. It's a surprise to absolutely no one, but there's so many games. Week one, we're treated right off the bat on Monday Night Football with Aaron Rodgers up against Josh Allen. Like it feels like prime time is looking very, very good. I excuse me as have a look at the screen here because there are so many. I've pulled up a few games that I wanted to get across, but I'll leave some for the boys. But Dallas Cowboys at San Francisco 49ers in Week 5. I mean, with how the playoffs have gone in recent, there is a lot on this game, and I think if the Cowboys, it's not a playoff game, but given how they've fallen in recent playoffs under Mike McCarthy, if that's a loss, even though it is on the road, if that's a loss in prime time, look, there's going to be some heat. I think the Cowboys have a Week 7 bye from memory. If the Cowboys are struggling into that bye in this year's and all-in season for Mike McCarthy, he's got the offensive coordinator tag to go with or the play caller tag, I should say, to go with the head coach duties after Kellen Moore's departure. There is a lot there. So, and that's a great. I don't know. I know I've got an Eagles fan in here, so I'm trying to be conscious of that. But it's a great jersey clash. You've got to love a good jersey clash. And the 49ers have great strip, and they're often in these great jersey matchups. I know, with the Packers 49ers is another one that looks great, particularly when it's on proper grass. You've got to love that. So those are some of the ones that jump out off the bat. There's revenge games everywhere that you're seeing across the board. But there's one as well. I believe the Dolphins and Chargers take each other on this year. If I'm not speaking out of turn, that was pulled up on one of the Excel spreadsheets I have in front of me. And Dolphins Chargers, we've got that week one. Week 1 in one of the standalone games. It's like that mid-afternoon slate. So what for us that'll be at about 6:30 in the morning on a Monday.
Early.
Dolphins visiting Chargers. How many points are we expecting in that one? 70, 80? Are we going north of 85?
Well, I don't know. Ask Jalen Ramsey. I reckon he'd be expecting a little bit less.
I mean, and you know what? Jalen Ramsey might have a decent game, but you go across the board there. We know the wide receivers that the Miami Dolphins have with Waddle and Hill there. They've added A-Chain. You talk about some buzz coming out early from OTAs and mini camps. That A-Chain's just carving out explosive play after explosive play. Not a surprise when he runs a 4.3, 240. He's 188 pounds, I think, but runs like a 210-pounder. I've never seen someone at that weight at the running back spot so good at inside running and the power element of that as well. And the Chargers are same old with the Chargers each and every year. And I know I've got a Raiders fan in here, so maybe not for everybody, but you do hope to see them stay healthy at one point. At one point, it's a bit ridiculous. I thought leaving San Diego, perhaps
I'll give you one game.
Leave the curse behind, but it definitely traveled with them down to Los Angeles. So Allen, Mike Williams, they invest in Quentin Johnston, hopefully a healthy offensive line. Austin Eckler back in the frame with a reworked contract. Justin Herbert, one of the true, just prodigious talents at quarterback. That one jumps out to me that we could be in for an absolute show.
Yeah, boys, what do you reckon, Carts? Any games jumping out at you?
Yeah, so week 1, I'm keen to see all the top quarterbacks that went in the draft. So they're all playing Sunday. I think it's the 1 p.m. time slot. So like Monday, 3 a.m. our time. So the Panthers and the Falcons, the Texans, the Ravens, and the Jags and the Colts all got the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. So all the new quarterbacks. Pretty keen to see just how those boys go. Like week 1, when the pressure is going to be like the microscope's on them the most. Just see how they go. Obviously, hoping they all start. We're assuming they're all going to start. See how they go. In terms of other games that just sort of piqued my interest a little bit, week 4, I've got the Jets taking on KC. Jets are at home. It's Sunday night football. I think sort of week 4, you always talk about sides are starting to figure out who they are. So week 4, maybe they're starting to start to settle in. We'll see. Maybe Rodgers has had a bit of time to settle in, and like they're sort of working out who they are, and it could be a really good matchup. And then just selfishly for me, the Raiders at home. First game at home against the Steelers. It's week 3. So the first, got a couple of potentially tough ones on the road early. Week 1 at the Broncos, week 2 at the Bills. So tough little run. So first one at home for the Raiders. Need to put in a good showing. Sunday Arvo game for us.
Good gritty jersey matchup, that Raiders-Steelers. Good. Not as flashy as some others, but enjoy that. That's tangible through the screen there. You feel that.
You do. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm looking forward to so far, mate.
Danny, how about those Beagles, mate? Where have we got that?
We should get a custom jersey.
Oh, it's already up here. Don't worry about that.
Like Laurie, obviously one of the biggest ones I've circled is that Week 11 Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl rematch. Just going to be interested to see how Philly come back at that one. And then another game, I'm not going to go through so many of them, but yeah, another game that obviously has got a little bit of personal interest for me is the November 5th Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs, the one that's actually being played in Frankfurt in Germany, because there is a high
Why is that not interested, Danny boy?
high chance I will be in Europe. My significant other, my better half, is going to be living in and working in Denmark for the second half of the year. So I'm going to try and get over for November, December. And trust me, I'll be there from the start of November to make sure I'm in Frankfurt for the 5th. Like, obviously, tickets going to be hard to get and stuff like that. But if I can have any opportunity to get there and see a game,
we will pull our significant resources to get you there, mate.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and we will just mention that the podcast will not stop. Danny will be on Daniel leave, but he will still be there. So you don't have to stress about that. No, it's a working holiday.
Yeah, it's a working holiday. It's a working holiday. Well, technically, it's a research holiday, really. I'm assuming I'm going to get all my flights back at tax time and all of that.
Yeah, nice.
I'm glad you brought up game over in Europe, because there's one that I wanted to touch on. The Jags are obviously a regular feature over in London. You know, the Werewolves of London, that they'll be known as, you know, when the team eventually goes there in 2029 or something. But there you go. The
We'll
Jags,
put on the ticker.
You mentioned the Jets. Like, it's nice to see the Jets being brought up as, like, you know, oh, look at this game. Like, when talking about the games we're excited for, the Jets being mentioned. Look, it hasn't been the most consistent occurrence in recent seasons, but the Jags are another one. Like, Trevor Lawrence was someone who touted him from early last season that he was going to finish the year as top 6 quarterback, and I think he absolutely landed that by the end of the season as we go into the 2023 campaign. Him playing against Josh Allen at Tottenham Stadium, that's an absolute belter, especially with the Jags. You know, they've invested in the offensive line. Calvin Ridley's part of the equation down there now. Travis Etienne showed what he can do when healthy. I'm incredibly excited for where we see Trevor Lawrence go. You know, the 1 year of Doug Peterson time was far better than what we saw in the just calamitous experience under Urban Meyer in his rookie season. The toughness they saw, what he showed, you know, talent isn't a question with Trevor Lawrence. The toughness the guy showed in the playoffs, coming down from 75-0 at halftime, you know, that's something you've got to feel so positive as a Jags fan. And look, this is the type of team that he's going to have to do absolute battle with and go toe to toe with in that loaded AFC, and getting that. I mean, if I'm the Jags have sent some not great teams over to London, as committed as they've been to the city over the years. This has to be one of the best games they've treated the local fans to. So yeah, that one I think it's week 5, week 6, somewhere in that, in just after that first month. That's one that, look, it'll be 9:30. I think it's going to be 9:30 in Eastern US time. So at that point, it's going to be 11:30 or 12:30, depending where daylight saving is for us. But if you're struggling to sleep that Sunday night or that
could be a good night shift one, Carts.
Absolutely, worst things to have fired up.
Loz, are the Jags? Are they over there 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah,
they're doing 2 weeks in a row. Different stadiums.
Yeah,
I think they're doing Wembley and Tottenham.
Good chance maybe to steal this one from the Bills over kind of neutral territory, I guess. Like, and as you said, coming off, you know, a much better year last year, getting to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence, you know, he's obviously grown and matured. Good chance to maybe steal one from the Bills there.
Absolutely. Like, the Jags, I don't know how confident people are in the completeness of where their defense is, but offensively, if you're seeing Lawrence, look, progress as a player isn't a straight line, right? Players take steps back, up and down. Sometimes they rocket forth in one season. But if we expect to see some more similar growth that we saw from year 1 to year 2 with Lawrence, and then the additional talent that he has around him, you know, they walk in there with Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley as wide receiver 1 and 2. And I'm not sure we feel confident that the Buffalo Bills added Dalton Kincaid to kind of play his little lineup as tight end, but really he's going to function as a big slot receiver. Are we confident that can you say that the Bills go in with the better 1-2 punch out of receiving options than what the Jags do in that one? If we're going to see a throwdown, you know, the Bills themselves have had to retool on defense a little bit. I don't think it's as the Bills felt, especially going into last season, such a complete roster, seemingly good players at every single level. They've had personnel losses. Their offensive line was exposed to a degree last season, and we saw a little too much of chaotic Josh Allen and not growth and control Josh Allen, where he channels that ridiculous talent that he does have. So yeah, they're absolutely a chance. I think The Jags, I'm not going to sit here today and say the Jags are going to make an AFC championship game, considering how stacked that conference is. But this is year 3 of Trevor Lawrence. If he's continuing to take that run up, in my opinion, he's top 6 quarterback in the league. He's going to put himself in a lot of games where he's the best quarterback on the field. It's a great place to start from. And, Josh Allen and the Bills would be wanting to see a lot more consistency than they did, than they put down there in 2022, which is a disappointment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great shout, though, Carts. Just having that extra week there to be able to get acclimatise and stuff like that. Yeah, great shout. Yeah. Great shout. Danny's obviously just gone to check out what overseas is like at the moment, so he'll get himself sorted. My 2 games are very selfish of myself, but the first one I'm looking forward to seeing is whether Aaron Rodgers has handed the keys over to Jordan Love. Week 1, we were at the Bears, so it'll be interesting to see if the Packers do still hold the keys of Chicago and are going to take control there. The other one, I think, is week 5, and I'm hoping again to pull those collective monies together and see if me and Carts can get over to Vegas. Packers versus Vegas in Vegas would be a delight to get to.
Happy to do it, mate.
Yeah.
Anything for work,
Well, it's all tax write-off. We all know it. So we'll have to hit up our sponsors and see if they're willing to send us over there, though. Because flights have some reason gone through the roof, but
just gone running.
Yeah. But no, there is. I don't know about you boys, but I feel like this year more than other years, there's so many games week on week that are just like, Jesus, some juice in that game. Whether it's a backstory or just 2 QBs that are looking to go at each other, you're like week on week, there's going to be absolute crackers.
Well, I think when I thought that too, and you ask yourself, is this just me in the depths of the off season, just thirsty for some NFL content, and I'm just ready to test based on it, like whatever drips are coming your way, like the schedule release. It's a schedule release. We know who's playing who before this. This is just the order, and yet it's a 3-day event.
Yeah,
you've got network specials on ESPN, on NFL Network, everywhere. But I was thinking about that. Why does this feel so spicy? Like, why does this schedule look so good, seemingly every week? And I think when you do have, it's no secret, the AFC is the dominant conference, at least on paper and coming off 2022. The AFC is absolutely stacked, like 10 deep stacked with teams that can absolutely contend. And because you play your conference teams more often, you're seeing more of those matchups. I would hazard a guess that we're not going to sit here and go through 256 games right now, whatever the number is at this point. But if you went through and you kept ticking off the games that you were excited about, I'm going to guess that AFC versus AFC would feature really, really heavily in that. From the NFC side of things, like people are going to be obviously excited about the Eagles, the 49ers, you throw in the Cowboys after that. There's a little mystery after that, but, a competitive team out of New York and the Giants is going to gain eyeballs and attraction. A team like the Detroit Lions that have absolutely sparked something. Chicago Bears that have been lowly as anything, but they might have the most exciting player in the NFL on their roster. And I'm sorry, but they could, or he could take steps backward. But there's so many, when you have a concentrated amount of talented quarterbacks going against each other in one conference. And on the other side, there's plenty of lottery tickets that look like fun. The Bears might win 6 games, but there'll be a whole lot of fun for 17 of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with the NFC, because it's so wide open. It's just, it could be anything. So it's kind of, as you said, like it's exciting.
Absolutely. So in the past week, Loz, there's been some rule changes, and I know hosts of other big NFL shows are not as happy about it. It's come to the kickoff rules. So now a fair catch will be taken automatically to the 25. Is that how I read it properly? And it got voted on and it passed straight away as an introductory this season, so they're going to trial it. But I can't see them going backwards.
Yeah. Goodell had to reintroduce it. He didn't get it through the first time.
No, he didn't get it through first time, but then second time, all of a sudden, had everyone on board. So I wonder what, grease some palms or something. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like, I can't imagine the kickoff guys are very happy about this.
No, you heard like the special teams coordinators were almost unanimously against this. But, they're going to talk about safety and they're going to talk about safety, which we should always be having that conversation. Look, it's not always great podcasting and radio to have a lukewarm take. I'm kind of just holding my horses here just for a minute because of what you said, right? 1 year. It's kind of a trial run. And I don't think this is I think this is a step to where we'll eventually get. Where we eventually get, I'm not sure. But this feels like a one season, not a half measure, but about as much of a measure as you want to take in one season. as you step along to somewhere where you still feel like you can get the kickoff in the game, but are limiting some of the collisions and hits. Look, I think it's an absolute art for kickoff specialists, whether it's your kicker or your punter, who's mastered dropping it down and like sending a moon ball up there. And maybe that's our footy, the culture we grow up in here, whether it's, AFL, rugby, we have of course we have an appreciation of the boys, putting boots through leather over there. But it's an art to be able to do that and it drop down in that particular zone. So it's tough to see that skill not rewarded, but I think this is something in a step towards, further down the track where we can still have concussions. Kickoffs in play, limit concussions.
We can still have concussions, Kraus.
Unfortunate slip of the tongue there. But perhaps the final result in a couple of years' time is more, whether those remain fair catches or not. Maybe the blocking setup is different. Maybe we see blocking start further down the field. Maybe we see blockers start closer to the line of scrimmage together, so you're not getting those high-speed contacts with the coverage units and then the kickoff return units. It looks rough this year, and when you do have it's seemingly unanimous response.
Yeah, we create words up too, don't stress.
Yeah, unanimous response seemingly from masters of the craft and special teams coordinators. It does get you back up a bit, and you go, "Is this really better for the game?" But especially because it's an X factor, right? Returning the return, it's a little bit of the dark arts. It's a little bit of an X factor, but you still like to see that kind of chaos element brought into it. But I'm reserving full judgment. It might not be pretty this season. It might not be the most exciting year of returning we've seen, but I'm interested more in where the long-term conversation gets us. Because you still want returns in the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not as if it played a massive part in the Super Bowl that we just saw.
No, and just mildly pivotal. But, you did see some of the numbers coming out that, the average return position, the average return mark for kicks fielded inside the 5-yard line or the 10-yard line was pretty close to the 25-yard mark. So people are going to say, on average, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But we're not talking about, fans aren't going to talk about on average. They're going to think of what the emotive, the spectacular. Yeah, that's a small sample size, but you can understand why people want to hold on to those because, the names of Devin Hester, ring true in all our minds for a reason.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Macca. So if you don't signal, if the returner doesn't signal fair catch, it's game on, return as normal. You've got to signal fair catch and then it's automatic to the 25.
Yeah.
So we're still going to
or kick through the end zone. Is the end zone going to 25 now, or it always has been in it? Or has been the last few years?
They made the move out there,
yeah. But
so we will still see some return.
Yeah, well, you got to be some balls. So, that's what I think, for myself, the Packers...
That's going to be coming from the coaches is some coaches will just be, signal safe catch no matter what.
Shit.
That's what we're doing.
And depending on who the quarterback you're playing as well, you want to be giving them as least as possible, I guess. But I think from a personal side, last year, the Packers' special team, punt returns, kick returns have been shit for years. We finally find this gem with Keyshawn Nixon, getting our first punt return or kick return touchdown in, I think it was 10 or 15 years or something. And now they're trying to take it away from us. So that's where I'm a little bit dirty on it. But as long as it doesn't make its way into the punt game as well, that's another... If they keep the punts, I guess that you see them more. Depending on how many touchdowns are scored, I guess. But, as long as it doesn't make it into both sides of the kick, then, I guess we'll see where it goes. We don't really have much choice. We're going to see it anyway, so we might as well cop it on the chin.
The other one we don't have much choice about, and I think people are, in terms of rule changes, and it's not an on-field rule, but the change to Thursday Night Football flexing that we're going to see from week 13 to week 17, they got a lot of pub. Look, it's limited to 4 weeks. It's 28 days notice now, which is better than where it started, the rule proposal. But I think in a selfish way, you can sit there and be like, well, what does it matter to us? We're in Australia. We're likely not going over there. We're watching on TV. This way we're going to get, Thursday Night Football is going to, it can only happen twice a season as well in that little window there, the week 13, week 17 window. It means we might get two extra good Thursday Night Football games instead of being subjected to one that, a Broncos special that looked like a belter in May and is an absolute fizzer come, November or December. But think of the fans, that's a big change to happen to you, 4 weeks out. You could have hotels booked. It could be kids. It could be family. It could be leave from work. It could be all sorts of stuff. to have thrown in there. That's a tough break, and you just think like, we'll get a couple extra, maybe, the games might be 30-40% better than we could have asked for a couple of weeks. But there's going to be some rough tales that we see out on social media that are going to go viral. Me, my wife, and my, 4 kids had this planned, and now we can't do it. And that's going to be tough to see. And I think justifiably that's been heavily criticised and questioned. And look, again, it may not come up, may not get used. And there are some pretty strong restrictions on it, down to 2 games in that short period. But that one felt a little bit like, and it passed 24-8, which is the absolute minimum amount of votes you needed to get that through. And you heard from the teams that did abstain, the buzz that came out from that. And that was, we feel like this is not the kindest gesture we could offer to our, beloved fans that have put the league in the position it's in today.
Mm. I think it's fair if you're within that 28-day period or whatever, then, you get moved, you get penalties. It's just what it is. But for those who, you're going to hear all the bad stories about those who have 4 kids and, can't make it. You'll never hear the good stories where it's got moved and old mate who had leave on that day or who didn't now can go. And, you always see the bad before the good. So I'm sure there's going to be just as many good stories as bad stories.
I want to put a wager down that it doesn't get used this week. It doesn't get used this season. There's so much talk about it. And it's the thing where we get, week 13 to week 17, Thursday Night Football happens to be the greatest slate of games in modern NFL history.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Quickly from me, Loz, any news on Zeke yet?
No, pretty quiet on Zeke. I think, look, for those that watched a lot of Zeke last year, it's not really a massive surprise. Who he is as a presence in the locker room, professionalism, work ethic at this point of his career is really commendable. But from an efficiency standpoint, effectiveness standpoint, we don't need to run into all the numbers, but he rated really, really low in terms of his on-field production last season. He still got more carries than Tony Pollard, which for many Cowboys faithful was hair-pulling numbers and just bizarre. But look, he still runs with power. He still runs with vision, but his ability to put those 2 things to work with speed or burst or lateral agility has been so massively diminished. Pass blocking probably isn't at the elite tier it was in the early stage of his career. Still smart, still understands blitz pickup, obviously recognizes where he needs to be, but there's a reason in a year where there was an absolutely stacked running back class. Like, I think I had 15 guys that I thought were worthy of taking in the top 3 or 4 rounds at the running back spot. But there was probably a couple more extra that I was lower on than the average. It wasn't a recipe for him to find a happy home. Quickly, I think he'll be waiting around. Maybe he doesn't want to do OTAs and minicamp. He doesn't need to do it if he's staying in good physical condition and training to himself. But I think this could be a situation where you wait for an opportunity to arise and wait. And that's sad to say. You hate to bank on injuries, but that's unfortunately that's the kind of cynical nature of the market, especially for that running back spot. People have talked about the Bills for a bit, both not just in conjunction with Zeke. Talked about with Dalvin Cook, who's expected to be traded or released at some point in the coming days. They have James Cook there, who's more of that kind of modern day third down back receiving skill set. They did invest, and they do have Damian Harris in building, who presents that power, that vision, that solid kind of, not the most elusive or explosive running back, but a pretty damn good running back during his time in New England. The charges get brought up, particularly when there were question marks about Eckler. He's back now. You could use another power element there. And I think both Cook and Zeke would present that. Cook, I think, has more gas left in the tank than Ezekiel Elliott. But you look through the league and there's just not a lot of obvious homes. I was going through the running back depth chart kind of before the draft, after the draft, to really get a good feel for who had kind of questions there. With you look in the NFC North, you look at a team like the Bears, they brought in Deontay Foreman to pair with Khalil Herbert before the draft. You go, look, Deontay Foreman's, he's been on all of our fantasy teams. How impressive is that? But then they go get a guy like Roshan Johnson, who has a 3-down skill set, immense power, really nice balance. Really think he's a good running back. You saw this throughout the league, different versions. It's the Saints. Yes, Alvin Kamara is closer to the end. They add Jamal Williams, and I really like Kendra Miller out of TCU. He's a really talented running back. What about a team like the Bengals, where there's been noise about Joe Mixon? and whether he's long for the team. Would they really, would they really move on from a Joe Mixon and then bring in another older running back, particularly maybe someone like Dalvin Cook, who I think would command more money than Zeke? But then they go get a guy in Chase Brown late in the draft. I love Chase Brown out of Illinois. I thought he was, like, again, this is a guy that we've been happy seeing coming off the board in the third or fourth round if he was really needy at running back. This guy is he has different build and different types of moves than, say, a Le'Veon Bell, but he's got that patience where he seems to lull the defensive line to sleep as he presses the gap and then finds it go. Great vision, great feel, really nice sharp footwork, has the gas pedal. And, he lands in a place like Cincinnati, where if Cincinnati do move on from Joe Mixon with everything you saw, a decline on the field and then off the field, there's been issues, to say the least. He's also a guy that ran almost exclusively out of shotgun. And one of the big things the Bengals did to turn around their running game last year was go away from the under center running and get into shotgun runs. This guy fits so well. I'm giving it away. But that fit, that where he landed, if any of the people in my fantasy leagues are listening, yeah, I'm going after Chase Brown later in the rounds. It may be an absolute wasted draft pick, but so you kind of look for these spots, and it's not obvious now where someone like a Zeke or even Dalvin Cook would reside. I mean, you look at Dallas, I guess, who didn't add a running back till a kind of smaller guy, Juice Vaughn, late in the draft.
Father son.
So they use a power element. They've already got the franchise tag. When it comes to Zeke, they're the ones that released him. They know where Zeke's at. And Dalvin Cook, are you really going to, even if you got Dalvin Cook for half the price that he's on now, if $5 million or $6 million a year, we're really investing $16 million in the running back position in the year 2023.
No.
And it goes back to, I reckon it was when you were on last time, we talked about how the running back market is where it's at, and it almost makes more sense to go draft a young guy rather than commit to a vet that's going to take up X amount of cap space and that sort of thing. And you might get
especially when the class is so loaded. Especially when I wasn't the biggest fan, but Israel Abanikanda had a lot of big fans, and he's going off the board late. You look at Jacksonville, who already had Travis Etienne, whom they invested really highly in the draft and showed more than a little bit of game last year. And then they come up and go, who we're going to pop behind you? Tank Bigsby, who I nicknamed as just Big Smooth. He reminded me a little of Arian Foster, just big, smooth, slasher type, who can break through arm tackles. It feels like there's a lot of talent at running back every single year. This felt particularly loaded, and when you're a veteran running back on a big salary that finds themselves looking for a job, it's not a recipe for good times.
No. Sounds like a few of those veterans might possibly not find a home in the near future. But just a quick one. You mentioned Chase Brown, another Chase Young. Are you surprised? Just a quick. Are you surprised that they're talking not beating his 5th-year option?
No, because of how it's gone. Like, the talent's ridiculous, but this is, if you're looking at the likely scenarios for how it's going to go for Chase Young, this is one of the worst possible ones. Just in terms of, there's been some health issues, there's consistency of play. The talent is there. He's had those purple patches of dominant form. But no, I don't think it's absolutely wild, especially, 5th-year options aren't the cheapest thing in the world. And if he does have the season they hope he has a breakout season. Because, you still are able to keep control while he's under the roster, all the different tags that are available there. So, no, I wasn't really surprised. And I think, especially when you consider where the franchise is at, how long does Ron Rivera have left as head coach there? And we've got a change of ownership as well. It could be a very different regime we're talking about. So, no, it's not a surprise that they didn't invest that 5th-year option. It sets up, it makes a lot of sense that, we'll see how the Commanders season goes. But that with all the tumult and change in that operation, and in my opinion, great that we will be seeing a change of ownership as soon as that gets through the owners, which we're waiting on them to kind of, give that the big green tick. The fact that there's not a massive investment at a pivotal position with huge coin or even a point to that with someone we're committed to going forward, no, not a very big surprise.
Nah, fair enough. I feel like we'll have you on again when that they've crossed the T's and dotted the I's of that Commanders change. But before we get on to your boys drafting, the Aussie lads that didn't quite get picked up that we thought might have, but have gone. So we've got Lou Headley, who's gone to the Saints undrafted. And have you heard any other guys, Adam Corsack, that might be going anywhere?
Well, Adam Corsack signed up with the Saskatchewan Roughriders I believe I said that right, in the last week. Yes, Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Nice.
So he signed there in the last week. So that doesn't put an end to NFL dreams. There could still be interest. He got the invite to both Steelers and Chiefs minicamp. He is someone. Look, it's not surprising that I think the CFL had their global football draft. I think he was the 3rd overall pick in that. A lot of Aussies often do feature highly in that. Considering where he punted at Rutgers, the fact that the three...
Without even knowing sometimes too, Macca.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We're considering that the 3 football or the cities that he's been tied to since punting up in the cold at Rutgers is, Saskatchewan in Canada, Pittsburgh and Kansas City, both pretty frosty spots. Not akin to not afraid or unused to snow and cold weather and dreary conditions. That's not a surprise, but we'll see for Adam. He's in training camp there now. We'll see if the NFL lines call open again as we get into the rest of the offseason. That could certainly happen around training camp. And then for Lou, you're not getting huge amounts of punting reports coming out of mini camps as much as we're keeping going. I'm looking forward to chatting with Lou shortly, which is one of the, be keen to get out there. He's someone I spoke to not long after he, took over, stole signing day back in the day when he went viral, when he first inked his deal to join, or inked his deal or signed on the dotted line to join. So looking forward to chat with him. But he'll have a shot there. I don't think that the Saints weren't totally settled at the special team spot at both kicking and punting options. I think they'd love some more stability there, but he'll get a chance. It's not a rookie, addition behind a veteran punter that's got 9 All Pros or 9 Pro Bowls, and this is just trying to keep his leg warm. If Lou can really step up and take advantage of the opportunities he gets, and he's got a big leg. He's got the type of leg that'll make people turn around. It'll come off the boot, and people will notice. If he can make that impression, there's certainly the chance that he can make inroads there and steal a starting spot. But those are the ones from the local angle that we're looking at, and not too long from now, we'll be looking at the next year's class, which of Aussies, which does feature a positional player in Thomas Yasmin, who's got 1 year left at Utah. And
friend of the show, Big Tom, he's come on there.
Show. Yeah. 6'5", 250, runs 4.45, productive back end of the last season. Dalton Kincaid has just left Utah, so we know
good understudy.
Starting gig there. That's a good way to learn. It'll be interesting to see. He'll be a bit older when it does come time for Yasmin. He'll be a kind of 24-year-old draft prospect. But usually when you hear that and it's someone who's been playing football since Pee-wee, it's a bit of a ding. But when he's so new to football, I think you can counteract the fact that he'll be 24.
They know.
Yeah, they know he's 24, and they also know that he's got untapped upside because of how late he was to the game, and yet has come on really well. Yeah, and the fact that he's a superb athlete. If he tests the house.
Are you following him on the side? He's 6'5" and bloody jocked. He's huge.
Yeah,
he's enormous.
The invite to Indianapolis can't come soon enough because he could do some really impressive stuff at the combine. And we've seen, a great tight end class has just come through the draft, and athletic testing has such a big impact on that position. There is a huge correlation. It's one of the interesting conversations about Michael Meyer was he didn't have otherworldly or even massively above average athletic testing. He was so solid, good block, so tough, great hands, nuance in his routes. But when you look at the dominant tight ends in the NFL, they're ticking that athletic testing box, and you're looking at the George Kittle, the Travis Kelce, the Darren Waller. These guys are stepping up. Kyle Pitts, we'll see, I think, victim of circumstance to a degree, but you're not seeing a lot of guys that ascend to the elite tier that don't have that level of testing. And I think when it comes to Yasmin, we could have a really exciting prospect on our hand, and from a scheme that we know can feed the tight end as well in Utah.
And always exciting to see positional players, not always just the kickers and the punters. So that's cool.
The other one I should mention while we're on tight ends is Patrick Murtaugh, through the International Player Pathway Program, joins the Giants. He did post this morning, and I'll just bring it up here so I'm not misquoting anything.
Giants. Did he go to the He went to the Lions.
Sorry, did I say Giants? I
Yeah,
meant Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it sounds like you're nervous about him, Tommy. Oh.
No, happy for him. Happy for him. But just I know who's in my division. No, you worry.
Yeah.
He
know thy
post,
enemy.
Yeah, he did post earlier today that that I believe, and I'm just
unfortunate injury or something, hasn't it?
An unfortunate injury. But so we'll just keep a close eye on that. But another example, there were a number of Australians and Kiwis in the mix there to get into that program. He was the one that landed the spot. But yeah, the noise around the talent that is coming from down here, whether it's through things we are used to, like Pro Kick, or guys going over to college like Thomas, or positional converts to the International Player Pathway Program. Australia is no secret anymore, and we're finding more and more of that.
Absolutely. Just before we do let you go, mate, thank you as always for coming on. But we've got Danny that is going to absolutely just lob one up for you to hit out of the park.
Well, I just want to give obviously thanks for coming on, but a massive shout out to Joshy Boy on Twitter. He's probably our number one fan, and he actually requested this, so this is massive shout out to him. But yeah, can we get a little Dallas Cowboys draft recap?
Just to finish off, really, just go to town, mate. Go on.
I think it was a real kind of meat and potatoes draft from the Dallas Cowboys. Whether you want to say that they filled needs. Muzzy Smith was someone that was probably looked at more in that kind of 30 to 40s range from a lot of people on the outside. You hear, the standard stuff that comes out from draft rooms after, we'd had teams calling to move up and we asked them who they were going to take and they said they were taking Muzzy, or they called us afterwards and say, oh, you got him there. I tell you what, if he slipped to us 2 picks later, we were going to take him. You treat all that with a grain of salt, but
season.
I think upgrading the interior of the defensive line, I think the concerns against the run were slightly overblown. I mean, I think you look at the result against the 49ers and it's not that the Cowboys were giving up 6.5 yards a carry against that 49ers offense. But I think adding some starch there at that kind of nose tackle spot, you bring Jonathan Hankins back and you add Muzzy Smith there. It does build that interior. You got AGSau, who's your kind of starting 3-tech. Odigizua, who's more of that penetrating 3-tech, bit of pass rush. And we know what's on the outside, right, with Micah Parsons and Marcus Lawrence, and Sam Williams had a really nice rookie season as well. I think Luke Schoonmaker, I was really high on this guy. You look at his athletic testing, way better than the way Michigan used him. Michigan, this is ball control, run heavy. There weren't a lot of express yourself downfield route opportunities for Schoonmaker. And I think we talked about Schoonmaker before the draft, someone that I had big tickets on. Some people thought, he's a third-round player, Cowboys picking the back end of the round. You kind of have to take him where you take him, especially as they were coming off the board. It was him or it's Tucker Kraft at that spot. Some people had Tucker. A lot of people had Tucker Kraft ahead of Schoonmaker, but he's in that top 6 conversation. Good blocker, I think, with good athletic and receiving upside. Make way through. Look, Cowboys drafting a Texas Longhorn doesn't happen as often as a lot of Cowboys fans who are Longhorns fans would like. But getting Demarion Overshown there, this is how much faith do you have in Dan Quinn conversation? Because Overshown was kind of positionless. He came in as a safety, played linebacker, rushed off the edge a little bit. He was kind of positionless and didn't really find a natural home during his time at Texas. But athletic testing through the roof. You certainly see that kind of the closing burst that he does have on blitzes and when he's sent after the quarterback. And if you're a Cowboys fan, while his tape didn't live up to all the potential at Texas as a Longhorn wearing that burnt orange, this is a question of faith in Dan Quinn to have a role. Early noise is more of that will linebacker spot, a role in mind for him. You're not going to get through this class without talking about Juice Vaughn, though. Like, that's the story that stole everything, right? Chris Vaughn is a long-time member of the Cowboys front office scouting department, a senior member of it now. The chance for him to call up his son at a spot, I thought Juice Vaughn could have come off the board in the late 4th round, 5th round, probably because the athletic outlying in the 6th round makes a whole bunch of sense. They don't have an obvious power back. Look some of the recent names that have been in Cowboys uniforms, like a Malik Davis. Does he kind of take on a bit of those opportunities? But there's going to have some fun there. Look, it's going to be on Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer to execute. But, your line CD Lamb out there, you get Schoonmaker or whoever your starting tight end is. You've got Brandon Cooks lining up on the other side. and you can get him pony personnel and have Tony Pollard and Juice Vaughn lined up in the backfield together and have some real fun with that. This is not a big man. This is not a 5'10" running back. He's 179 pounds. He's short. He's down in that kind of mid 5'5" region. But he's electric. Go look at what he did against Alabama. I think he has straight line speed, but I think it's the burst and the acceleration that stands out more. But he's got some filthy footwork. Like some truly, preseason, there's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of clips of Juice Vaughn. He has one when I was watching him. He catches a swing pass out to the right. And it's something that anyone that's watched footy, whatever footy you're, particularly, rugby and rugby league here in Australia, he gives a guy a little hint of a step, just like a little taste. The guy bites a little bit, and then he hits him with the exact same move, but a full ball one, and just leaves him standing there holding his pockets. So there's a lot of fun there. I don't think this was a draft where people are going to come away going, oh, steal, oh my God, the value. Eagles. But it's certainly, I think it's a sound draft. And I think when you look at the Cowboys as well, you can criticize a whole lot of things about that football operation. You criticize the power dynamics, how the Joneses work, the head coaching decisions, all that kind of stuff. But one thing that I think they've deserved and got a lot of praise for over the past decade has been drafting, especially under Will McClay. Will McClay is one of the best and highly regarded evaluators in the league. But that's probably how I'd sum that one up. Didn't want to go through every single pick in the draft, but those are the real crux of it. And we'll see what emerges from there for a season where I think ideally for them they get more continuity and more of the same on defense. And offense, we see how much of a change, how much West Coast are we seeing under Mike McCarthy, and can Dak Prescott, despite still, the Dak haters will hate to hear this. Despite still being such a good performer under pressure versus the blitz on 3rd and 4th down, will there be more consistency and some better decision-making on 1st and 2nd down with some of those errant throws that seemed, I think the best way would be that seemed confused. They seemed confused for the offense, they seemed confused for the quarterback, and they seemed confused for the viewer. Do we see more clarity? Because if you're going to keep pace with the Eagles, if you're going to keep pace with the Niners and whoever else bolts out of the wide open NFC, you're going to have to be a more consistently efficient offense that doesn't have those very frustrating drive stallers and ball turnover plays.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, just like every other team, it sounds like it's Super Bowl or bust for you boys at this time of year, but that's the standard. I know that we've taken yourself longer than what we had planned, so I'll wrap this up nice and quickly. We've also got Cardi's young girls in the background making plenty of noise, which is beautiful. Yeah. So I'll wrap this up so you boys can go look after family life. Loz, we appreciate you coming on. We'll get you on in the next few weeks, especially when the Commanders start to wrap up. That'll be interesting to talk about. As always, if you do enjoy this podcast, tell your friends, your family, your neighbours. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave a review. You can find us, Twitter, AGSau Podcast. Cardi, I've forgotten what yours is. Tim Cardi, AGSau. Is that right?
Yeah,
yep.
Correct.
Danny Webb, AGSau. T-Mac, AGSau. Loz, where can we find you? Twitter, everywhere? Where are we?
Yeah, do you bring around on Twitter at Laurie Horesh. You probably can't spell it, but that's all right. You'll find it close enough.
LAU.
LAURIHORESA. And obviously everything over on ESPN.com.au. You know, it's the off season, but we'll have some more conversations, some interviews going up. The NFL Brekkie show's in our downturn right now, but we'll be firing up as the preseason gets closer. Me and Big Phil Murphy.
Yep.
And yeah, keep an eye. It's that time of year where we're enjoying the morsels of nuggets of information we get out. So definitely get over there. And if you want to tell me, how terrible my quarterback rankings are, they're all on Twitter. Jump on, fire
Let
up.
him know.
Because,
Let him know.
this time of year, around 8:45 at night, once the little fella's asleep, I've got a bit of time to hop on and throw some respectful football bars back and forth.
He will bite back. Make sure you get into Phil's ear and make sure he gets on our podcast too. We'd love to see you two go head to head on this, but